usually I would say to the audience here, why do you think we need to structure an appointment book? I'm going to give you the answer here. If we have a structure, we have a map and something to work towards, okay? So a structured appointment book is one of the first things, absolutely an ideal day is absolutely one of the first things that we do when we work with practices and your ideal day could be totally different to the next person. So this is just a suggestion, this one that's on the screen here now. So an ideal day is what ideally you would love every day. If you came to work and your book was booked like this every day, it would be stress-free and you would be happy and you would reach your financial goals. So let's have a look at the different components. So first of all, we suggest that you have a morning meeting or a huddle. Can I have some yeses and nos? Well, actually some yeses and nos. Do you have morning huddles? Oh, yeah, well, that went really quick, didn't it, Bearers? Yes, no. Oh, huddles after lunch. Yeah, I agree. Sometimes huddles after lunch are good. Even you can do a huddle at the end of the day as well. So fantastic. Huddle, but not in the morning. So I love that some of you are being creative. That's fantastic. So, okay, excellent. So I love that the majority of you are having huddles. Now, a huddle is really important that it's not just a clinical huddle, okay? So a huddle to increase productivity in your book and to help your practice thrive is more about communication with patients and about checking out how the book is, okay? And about making sure that you have a smooth day for that day and the next day, okay? So if you are just reading out the day list to each other and saying, Mrs. Smith, I need some Articaine for her and some Filtec and, yeah, I need a molar band, that's not a huddle, okay? Ideally, a huddle is a structured meeting. And if anyone's interested, email me. I'm happy to send you a huddle agenda, okay, that gives you some suggestions of what to talk about in your huddle. And a huddle is, you would start off with talking about things like, how did we go yesterday? Was it a good day? What have we got to celebrate? What could we have improved on? And those things then we're going to discuss briefly in the huddle, or if it's going to take more time to discuss, we're going to pop it on our staff meeting agenda so that we don't forget to talk about that topic, okay? So that's one of the first things that we talk about in a huddle. I'm just going very briefly down some of the things, other things that we would do. We would certainly talk about, are there any roadblocks today? Mrs. Kostantopoulos, she's in at 3 o'clock and she talks a lot. So, and then I have to make sure I'm running on time for Mr. Smith because he's that type of personality that says, how long's he going to be? Okay. So how are you going to work that? Who's going to come and rescue you? All those sorts of things should be discussed. Okay. Then we're going to talk about, well, if we have an emergency patient, where are we going to put this emergency patient in? And usually I like to let my DA be in charge of that because my DA knows the book the best, okay? The DA knows that if I've asked for an hour for a molar endo and she remembers last time that it was a tricky endo and it actually had 4 canals, I'm actually probably going to need an hour and 10 minutes. So you don't put the emergency patient there. Front desk doesn't know that sort of detail. So the huddle is a team approach and it's team communication about the day. Other things we will talk about in our morning huddle is who's in our book and when do we have our next high production slot and how are we going to get a patient, you know, which patient's going to fill that high production slot. So we've actually got it at the forefront of our mind all the time. So here, the high production slot, or HP, means that you're working on higher value dentistry. Now, yes, it could be a crown, it could be an implant, it could be a quadrant of composites, something like that. I've just got a question here that I'm going to read out. What's the protocol for discussing patient medical history? Example, HIV. Can it be discussed in front of all staff members at the huddle? Great question. To be perfectly honest with you, I don't think that it's a problem discussing it, because we have confidentiality procedures in our practice where, you know, nobody's going to be taking that information outside and talking to other people about it. So we should feel confident enough in our confidentiality procedures that that's okay. You know, if you felt that it was something that you didn't really want to discuss, I would do it in my just little debrief. So in the morning huddle, I would be talking about the appointment book and the flow of the appointment book, which is the points that I'm going through in the agenda. In my little debrief with my DA, 5 minutes before I see my patients, that's probably when I would talk about someone with HIV there. So you need a number of little structures put in place. There's some information that the front desk doesn't need to know. If they did know it, it shouldn't matter, but there's some that they don't need to know. The front desk doesn't need to know that you're going to use articaine and you're going to use and that you're going to use a molar band. That sort of stuff shouldn't be discussed when the front desk people are there. So going back to the huddle agenda, we've spoken about filling our next pre-blocks. The next thing we're going to talk about is who we're going to ask for a referral or a recommendation. Yeah, and I can see you all cringing, okay. What gets talked about gets done, okay. You said to me at the beginning of the presentation that word of mouth referrals are important, so we need to talk about it in our huddle, and we need to potentially target or suggest different staff members ask different patients for referrals. That way we know it's going to get done. Okay, so we've spoken about the huddle. We've also got in this ideal day or structured appointment book a 60-minute new patient comprehensive exam. Who does a 60-minute exam? Can a few of you put down the times that you're using for me so I can see what you're doing? 45s, 45, 30, 20? Is 60? Yeah. Is that for new patients, guys? 60, yes, new patients. Okay. Okay. So what I want you to consider is I want you to consider that dentistry is a little bit different now. If we have got gaps in our book, why don't we utilise some of those gaps by spending more time with our patients? Oh, someone's doing 80. Fantastic, Ruth. That's awesome. Okay. Spend more time with your patients in those gaps. Get to know your patients. Build those relationships. That's what's going to make your books thrive. Okay, so consider utilising those gaps by spending more time with the patients that you've already got there. In Momentum, we recommend a 60-minute comprehensive examination for new patients, and we don't do a scale and clean at that time. Now, I'm going to say to you that when I first heard that I was going to be spending 60 minutes, I was like, oh, what am I going to do? What am I talking about? No, that's ridiculous. But can I tell you now, I'm very much like the person who put down that they use 80 minutes. I will definitely use every minute of my 60 minutes, and often it will go to 80 to 90 minutes. And it's not about me talking more. It's about getting the patient to talk more and you listen. The more you listen to your patient, the more you understand your patient's wants and the emotional drivers that they have, the better the relationship you're going to have and the more successful it's going to be for you to get your treatment plan across the line. Okay, so we need to listen with the desire to learn. So a lot of us are very competent dentists, and we do have something that we tend to do a lot, which can definitely destroy our chances of getting patients to say yes. What we do is we focus our treatment plans a lot on logic and education, which sometimes is looked at as lecturing. Okay, so we need to be very careful and we need to understand the psychology of our patients. every decision-making process that we make as human beings is made 90% driven by our emotions, 10% driven by the logic behind it. How much logic do you think dentists give their patients? Can somebody give me, can we have a few figures? Just write down some figures, percentage-wise. How much logic do you give patients when you're presenting your treatment plans? 50? 80? Any others? No one wants to tell me. Can I tell you that we've got it all wrong? 90% of the 605, absolutely. I totally get it. You're definitely right. We've got it totally wrong. 90% of the decision-making process is made by emotions. 10% is logic. We have flipped it upside down as dentists. We've been taught at university to give 90% logic and only 10% tapping into our patients' emotions and their needs and wants. And what that does is it makes it very difficult for our patients to say yes. So I really want you to think about that, because it's something that stops a lot of patients accepting treatment. Yes, they need to be informed. Absolutely, they need to have consent, informed consent. I'm not saying that they don't need that. But you need to listen to your patients. You need to work out what they really want, and then you need to tie it to their clinical needs. And what that's going to do is it's going to get you more success. Okay. Very difficult to do that, particularly with a new patient, if you're spending less than 45 minutes to an hour with that patient, and if there is scaling and cleaning in there at the same time. So if you want to increase your case acceptance, plus fill some gaps in your books, try and start spending more time with your patients and ask them questions that open them up, open-ended questions, so questions that can't be answered with a yes or a no. That's what I'd like to share with you with regards to that new patient exam. Now, the last thing in this structured day here is something that I get a lot of backlash against, okay? But it's something that is extremely important in a dentist's day. Admin time. As dentists, we are so obsessed with filling every single minute of the day with a patient that we don't leave ourselves time to catch up on our notes, to write our referrals, to speak to our staff about pressing issues, to run our businesses. Because we are dentists, but we're running businesses as well. Okay. Most of you will probably stay back late at night, finish off your notes, go through all the things that you need to do, all that sort of stuff. I suggest you consider putting some admin time into your day. Now, like I said, I get a lot of backlash from people with that, okay? People can't see the use in blocking off half an hour. I tell you what, once you start doing it, you become so much more productive because you have time to do your treatment plans. You have time to talk to your staff and get systems organised. It makes a big difference to your day. Okay, so consider that in your ideal template as well. Is there any questions about a structured appointment book? Who already uses a template? Can I have a yeses or nos? Great. Yeses, some yeses here. Some nos? Yes. Any others? Yes. Okay, good. Specific templates per dentist. Woohoo, you're fancy. No, that's good. And hygiene as well. If you have a hygienist, okay. Oh, trying with front office resisting. Oh, talk to me, talk to me. I think I'd love to have a chat to you about that because, yeah, absolutely. You just have to put it to them, what's in it for them, okay? Always got to think about with staff, what's in it for them. Okay, fire the front office. Oh, there you go. I love it. I love the feedback here. Awesome. Good stuff, guys. As I said, if anyone wants to talk to me about a structured appointment book, please do. This is the core of your practice and how you're going to begin to thrive. Okay, let's move on to the next thing. Booking 6 months ahead. Can I have an indication from everybody, please? Are you booking your maintenance appointments, recall appointments, whatever you call them, hygiene appointments, preventative care, 6 months ahead? I've got some yeses, 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 trying to. Yes, yes, good. 20%. Whoa, we need to talk. Okay, excellent. Right. I would like to see that you are getting 90% of your patients booked ahead. Okay, I'm hearing the groans. I can hear them even though you're all muted. Okay, 90% is what we need to work towards. Your front office need the skills. They need to not take no for an answer. Okay, there are plenty of things that they can say to ensure that the patient books ahead. I'm going to tell you that one of the biggest problems we see when we walk into practices is that recall systems, even though you've got them on your computer, whatever program you're using, none of them are fail-proof. Okay. I often walk into practices and the recall system is not working properly. You are letting patients walk out the door. Actually, you're showing them the open door. Okay, you need to capture those patients. You need to book them 6 months ahead. I love this comment here. The dentists need to be on board as well and create the need. You are spot on with that comment. So, as I've said, the patient should always leave your practice with their next appointment, whether that's for a filling or an extraction or a review appointment or their 6 monthly recall. They leave your appointment, your practice with their next appointment. That needs to become a rule, guys. It really does. So if you take nothing else from this tonight, take this. You need to go and speak to your front offices and you need to make sure that they are putting in systems in place so that the patient always leaves with an appointment. Now, the patient also needs to leave with something that I call an RTR, or a reason to return. So I'm coming back to the statement that someone made before. The dentists need to be on board. Now, cancellations in a practice are not the front desk's fault. When the patient rings to cancel, it's already too late. The team needs to be on board, okay? So what needs to happen in the appointment is the dentist and the DA need to give value to the patient and need to give the patient a reason to return, okay? So they need to be looking at the clinical need of the patient and they need to be stating certain words that tell the patient, you know, this is not an option that you don't come back for your next appointment. You need to come. Okay. So let's look at let's say a hygiene option. Okay. So patient has been in and they've had their regular preventative care appointment. So they've had a scale and clean, a 114, and the patient's pretty healthy, actually, okay? And the dentist turns around and says, so, Mrs. Jones, we'll see you in 6 months for your routine checkup and clean. That's what usually happens, okay? What does Mrs. Jones think when it's time for her appointment and she's really busy? Oh, it's just routine and you know what? It's just a checkup and clean. I'll cancel that. We'll do that, I'll do that later on. The language we use is so important. A checkup and clean is something that you can cancel quite easily. It doesn't seem important, and particularly if you say routine checkup and clean. So we need to make it important. It needs to be our preventative care appointment. But then let's go to the next level. While we were scaling Mrs. Jones's mouth, we noticed that pretty much overall, she's pretty healthy. Her perio's pretty good. But on the lower right, she has a few pockets of 4 millimeters. So what I'm going to say to Mrs. Jones is, Mrs. Jones, you're doing a fantastic job with your home care. You're doing really well. I'm really pleased with your progress. Now, Mrs. Jones, I am a little bit concerned, though, about these 4mm pockets on the lower right. It's really important that we see you in 6 months' time and make sure we give them a really good clean, because we would hate them to turn into some gum disease. Okay, who thinks I'm using scare tactics? Who thinks I'm creating value for the appointment? Give me some feedback. Both? You're right, a little bit of both. Value for scare, value. Okay, both. Okay, so I'm going to agree with you. There's a little bit of both. Keeping the patient informed while creating the urgency. I love how you've put it. Absolutely. What do you think if we're just saying things like your regular checkup and clean? Are we being a little too blasé and not letting the patient know exactly what's going on in their mouth? So I want you to think about it from both sides. I'm not into scare tactics, I'm really not, but I am into educating my patients and keeping them fully informed, okay? So if you haven't done it before, then it's difficult to start doing it. I've got someone there that says to blah. Can you explain blah for me? I'm enjoying the feedback. Thank you, everyone. You're doing really well. What do you mean by blah? Too many words, maybe? I talk a lot. That might be what it is. Too many words. Oh, typo. It was a typo. Ah! It's okay. You don't need to say sorry. That's all cool, all cool. So I hope it just got across what I mean by reason to return, okay? So if you've got a strong reason to return, then what happens is that if that patient does ring up to cancel, what we suggest is that the front office coordinator pulls up the records and sees what the reason to return is, because the dentist has written it down. Then the front office coordinator can actually have a conversation with the patient, something like, oh, Mrs. Jones, I understand that you need to cancel, but I can see here in your notes that Dr. Toni felt this was a really important appointment. Are you sure that you can't keep it? So it gives you a little bit of ammunition to try and prevent the cancellation. Now, I know, because we suggest that people do this type of thing in practices, I know it works. Now, the words that I said are not necessarily the words that you would use, but I'm just trying to give you the idea of what a reason to return is and how you're creating value so that they will book their appointment 6 months ahead and hopefully they won't cancel it. So we're creating value. Is there any comments there before I move on to the next point? Okay. Another thing I really think is important, and I know you might not think about this very much, but the patient should always leave with an appointment, a reason to return, a receipt, and a treatment plan, or at least a cost of what the next appointment is going to be for them. Okay. That stops what we call bill shock. I hope you know what I mean by bill shock, okay? So some dentists are a little bit uncomfortable about talking money, and that's okay. You know, we are healthcare practitioners, so it is difficult sometimes to talk money. But what that can lead to is a patient coming to an appointment and then after the appointment going to the front desk, getting told that it was $600 and they go into total bill shock. They're not going to come back to your practice, guys, okay? So it's better to be clear, transparent, and honest. And up front, let them know how much it's going to be so that they can budget for it if they need to. Often I'll get dentists saying, I'm not going to tell them how much it is. They won't come back. Or they'll go and check prices at other practices. Guys, you need to get over that, okay? You wouldn't buy a couch without knowing how much it was. We can't expect our patients to have dentistry done without knowing how much it is. A lot of cancellations are because people think it's maybe going to be more expensive than it actually is going to be, okay? I know that from asking people who cancel, okay? So often if there's a cancellation problem in a practice, I will go in, or I will get some of my team members to go in, and we might ring those patients, and we have certain things that we say to patients, and we find out what the reason is. There's always a reason behind cancellations. And then once we know the reason, then we can work on correcting it. So booking 6 months ahead, is that hot?